So I could be wrong on the county, but
Mm-hmm. I wrote it up before I was thinking about it. Yeah. It's got instructions.
we ready to go back there? We're just waiting on me. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Monday, May 7th, 2018 Transportation Commission meeting. Tonight, our first agenda item is to approve the April 2nd, 2018 regular meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
So motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Who was that? Sorry.
It was. All in favor, please.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. All right, motion carries. Number 2, is there anyone here from the public that is here to speak about an item not on tonight's agenda? No one? All right. So number 3, Massachusetts Street, 11th to 14, lane reconfiguration. Get this up here.
Good evening, everyone. All right, I'm going to do a little intro here, and then I have a couple of people from Bartlett West here to kind of go into the design a little bit more. This project, well, let me talk a little bit about the current layout. Current road section is approximately 47 feet wide. It varies a little bit throughout there, but that's approximately 47 foot wide. 2 lanes northbound, 1 southbound. Parking is currently allowed in the northbound travel lane, curb lane, on the east side from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. and all day Sunday. Parking is allowed on the west side from North Park Street to South Park Street, kind of in front of that Parks and Rec facility. This is a bike route, a bus route, and a safe route to school, and approximately 12,300 vehicles per day. We just recently did that traffic count. So the project overview, we got $100,000 in federal highway safety improvement program funds for a 2-way left turn lane at 13th Street and bike lanes from 11th to 14th. That was applied for last year because of the high number of crashes in that area. So the specific funding is for the lane reduction with the addition of the bike lanes and turn lane. We're also putting approximately $50,000 of city funds for a total of about $150,000. We're going to be doing mill and overlay or patching and microsurfacing. We're still working on that to determine what the road needs. That will be incorporated as necessary, but it will at least have a microsurface so that the new striping has kind of a nice surface to adhere to. The proposal is to eliminate 1 northbound travel lane and the parking on the east side of the road. The parking will remain on the west side from 11th to South Park. And this will include buffered bike lanes. a bike box in a southbound direction at 14th Street. Sharrows will be added near North Park Street going north. And then there'll be green pavement markings at the street intersections to draw attention to those conflict points. Just wanted to point out, we did a parking study in the area. Went out there, staff went out there 2 times a day during the weekdays and 3 times on Sunday, from Wednesday, April 11th to Tuesday, April 17th, and in that time we saw no cars parked in the area. I've heard this is mainly used in the summer when there's concerts and things in the park, so I don't think it's being used regularly. We've also asked police to kind of keep an eye, and I think they saw 1 car in 6 different days they were out there in total. So, also, just a quick note, the bike box and the green pavement markings require FHWA approval because they have interim approval currently, so that was submitted last week to be for a citywide approval. So we should hear back on that within the next couple weeks. And then just before we look at the layout, we looked at a few different options for this, and we took it to the multimodal staff team. You know, there wasn't a lot of variation in them. It was kind of where do we think we should remove parking and where shouldn't we? And we were trying to find that balance that really got us what we wanted to achieve but had the least impact. So we met with the multimodal staff team and kind of went over a couple options. We kind of combined 2 options to come up with what we're presenting here tonight. And then I know there's been some discussion in the past, and we talked about it with our multimodal team too, about whether we should have this be like have delineators or something. There's a couple concerns with that. One is cost. We're really already at the max for this project with what we're doing. There's no additional funding available. It's long-term cost because if you use those like the sticks that are, I don't even know what they're called, the delineators, the plastic ones, those tend to disappear, we found, especially around KU. So those are not cheap to replace. And also then we have concerns about trying to keep it maintained as far as street sweeping and snow plows if we put any type of delineator. So that's why we've proposed a 2-foot buffer, just a painted buffer in this area. You know, we're obviously working with kind of within the existing curb line in this location. We aren't planning to do anything with the curb line. And so we're working with pretty limited funds. But I think this is a good project to kind of get people into downtown, especially with that 13th Street Bike Boulevard that we're looking at doing. And then also, there is a future project listed in our project list from 14th to 21st on Mass that in one of these future years we could try to tackle something similar down there. That one would probably be a little more expensive because we have to deal with the 19th Street intersection and everything too, where we might have to make that a roundabout or something. But that is kind of the ultimate plan would be to be able to get people all the way from that bike boulevard on 21st Street up to downtown. So I'm going to turn it over here to Bartlett West.
My name's JD Reidinger. I'm with Bartlett West. I'll probably touch on some of the things she just talked about, but just planning on going through the layout of the project. So here at 14th Street, we're converting this through right lane into a right turn only lane. The level of service in the AM, there's a slight impact to level of service in the AM, and it's the same level of service in the PM. Here we're dropping the through lane, and it allows us to shift the lanes over so that we can have the bike lanes on either side. And so in all situations, the level of service is B or better. So that's, you know, some of the better, probably one of the better intersections, even at the reduced, you know, through lane. This right turn lane is being left wider to allow for the school bus parking. And then, as she mentioned, we've got the bike box being added here on the north side. And then it's going from 2 lanes to, or from the 3 lanes to 2 lanes. There's this left turn lane being added here at 13th Street. You can see the green pavement markings through the intersections for the bike lanes. The bike lanes are buffered. There's a 2-foot buffer here, so the bike lanes are all at least 5 feet 5 to 6 feet, I think is the range, and that 2-foot buffer will allow for, you know, any additional overhang or anything, kind of add to the safety of it. Let's see. Parking here at South Park Street, the parking here will remain here on the west side between South Park Street and North Park Street. And then here at North Park Street, the bike lane is ending and we've got a sharrow going toward 11th Street. And I think that's, are there any questions on any of that?
How are you determining your local service impact?
I'm sorry?
How are you determining the impact of local service?
We use the traffic counts that were provided by the city, and one of our traffic engineers ran through the level of service. Correct.
Why aren't there green markings across the 14th Street? Because it ends there, or?
Yeah, so let's go back to that one. Because there's no bike lane on that side, so they'd be going, there's a sharrow over there. So if we had them going across, it would be from a through lane. There's no real place to put them on the through lane because it's shared with the driving lane. The bike lane and the driving lane are shared. But in the future, in that future project, if there is a bike lane added, then those would be added to the intersection to connect them.
I was just thinking of some way to, people come down that 14th Street hill from the west pretty fast
Mhm.
and often don't stop when they come around that corner or even look, even when the lights are ahead. It's kind of a frightening intersection, so.
Well, that's kind of, with the bike box there, I mean, you wouldn't typically do the bike box and the striping, because you would really only stripe the bike lane, and there is no bike lane going across. So the bike box is meant to be able to get the bicycles to the front of the lane, be more noticeable, and get priority as they're going through the intersection. Also, it allows them to make that left turn. So really, you wouldn't combine the two typically. So we thought the bike box was beneficial there, being that you're going to where there is no bike lane south of there. But like he mentioned, you know, if we do a future project that takes us further south, we would obviously potentially rework this intersection also as we went south. But we also looked at trying to start the bike lane on the other side of 14th Street northbound, but we talked with Ron, May, and just with the parking there that's being used for buses and also parents and things, it just really was too tight to fit in there. So thought it was best to have a sharrow and then transition into the bike lane on the other side of the intersection.
What happens if parking in the northwest corner?
Northwest.
That remains there. That's why we have this dashed bike lane, so that you can see that there is a bike lane going through there, but somebody can turn in and park.
Isn't that an angle parking?
It is, on both sides, yes.
Won't that be bad when they pull straight out?
That's why we have the green pavement, so there's a little more attention drawn to it. I don't think eliminating parking in front of those businesses would be very successful.
Right.
So realizing that we have to balance,
Yeah, but there are things that change it into backing it in.
yes,
Which,
but you also, it's not great in that area because of the proximity to the intersection.
You're still backing across the bike lane. If you're backing in.
Yeah,
Mm.
And we thought about it, but really with the proximity to the intersection too, then you have people pulling up to the intersection and backing in. We didn't think this close to a signal. It was really a good choice.
Will this be the first bike box in Lawrence?
Yes. And I believe, we're not 100% certain, but KDOT told us this might be, other places have bike boxes, but in Kansas, there may not be any other green pavement in bike lanes. They weren't 100% certain, but if there is, very few are doing that currently.
I'm just curious about, you know, the behavior as this evolves. It's going to be the first one, so there's going to be people in cars that are like, what are these bikes doing out here? whether it's green or purple.
Yeah, we've
You
talked
know.
about an education campaign, kind of partnering with the police department,
Mhm.
our Facebook page, the police department's Twitter account potentially, trying to utilize that, you know, following that they have already, to get the word out. Also, I think it's not showing on here, but, well, maybe it is, it might just be small. There's there's markings that say wait here on the other side. I don't know if are they showing? in
It says them here. They need to be stretched
Yeah.
out for the
They're just
FHWA
small on there.
text.
So it does say wait here. We also we need to look at potentially making that southbound no ride on red onto 14th because of the bike box. So there's certain things like that you try to draw attention to it, and we're going to try the educational piece of trying to make sure we get the word out.
Well, I guess my own personal thoughts are, at the current state of Massachusetts Street, I'm not comfortable biking on Mass. Although I do see a lot of people pretty comfortably doing it of all ages. And this will make me more comfortable. I'm just not sure how much more until I try it, probably.
Well, the
But
other
the bike
thing
box
is,
itself is kind of, you know, I'm trying to visualize that, and I'm not,
So now the stop bar is outside the bike box, so they're
yeah,
stopped.
they
stop
should.
further back.
but-
And this is, the lanes, I believe they're 10-foot lanes, so this should slow down cars also because we've got, I believe we have an 11-foot center turn lane, but then 10-foot lanes through most of it at least. We're obviously working with the existing curb line, so it's widening and, you know, kind of shrinking down there, but try to keep the lanes more narrow, to 10 to 11 foot, so that we don't have big wide lanes that people will feel comfortable speeding on. And just the presence of probably that striping of the buffer and stuff will shrink things down, and hopefully will slow cars down and make it more pleasant to bike on.
I think too, we've mentioned that the left turn lane on 15th Street feels awkward to me, and I'm looking at this may actually help that. Because I walked by there today, and it seems like once you're going south on Mass and you cross 14th, you, all of a sudden, if you're on the right, it's straight, but if you get to the left, it's a left turn only. Am I correct?
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah. And that's always seemed awkward to me. I've
Yeah,
seen
that
a lot
is.
of cars going through that intersection and seeming confused. And I don't know if this helps or if it does or doesn't. Maybe it doesn't make a
I don't
difference.
know that this would address it. I think like I said, that next phase, there's some areas going down that we'd have to address. That is kind of odd.
My experience, because I always turn right here,
Right.
Really,
is that cars that are behind me zoom over into that left lane
Yeah.
so they don't have to slow down
Mhm.
and go
And
around.
keep going straight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they're always.
Yeah.
Well, in regard to this intersection, the fact that we're shifting that left lane toward the left, it's giving you positive offset from the other left turn lane, and it improves sight distance and safety there.
Will you do any striping south of 14th?
Very minimally. I'm trying to look at, really just to get the Sharrow in there and define that right turn lane. It'll be fairly contained to probably in front of the school.
I have a question about the area, I think it's closer to South Park where you have parking.
Right.
Was there consideration to putting the parking outside of the bike lane? Like in some communities, I've seen
Yeah.
parking becomes a buffer.
We did discuss that some. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, they kind of went off what we recommended. I actually brought that up to our staff team. On our staff team, we have several people who ride bicycles. They were concerned with that, and I know other communities do it, but they've thought you're going to have people that park too far into the bike lane, because it's very hard to then define where people park when they're parking parallel. They'll either be too far in the travel lane or they'll start encroaching in the bike lane. And there was the thought of, now you have kids that are getting out and going to swing their door open, and you can't see them in the seat because they're sitting lower, where if you typically can see a driver. Those were the comments mentioned from people on our staff team who ride bicycles. because I brought up I brought a picture of in Minneapolis where they did that, and it just wasn't very well received from that group, so we decided to keep this as our proposed kind of plan there, so.
The parallel parking on the west side of the park, that's just solely for the Parks and Rec use? Is that primarily why it's being kept in the project?
No, I mean, you also have the people who are using the park and such through there. We thought it was a good balance, we have enough width with leaving it in, and thought that seemed to be the place that made the most sense, because it's where people are used to parking right now, versus on the other side of the road. So, because we don't have a turn lane through there, so we had enough width to allow the parking. So thought it was a good balance between not removing too much parking from the area, but yet accommodating all of the other facilities that we were trying to accommodate, so. Really, there's almost too much width without it, for that little stretch. I don't think you would want to transition your bicycle facility to be something completely different for a small stretch like that, so.
Any other questions for staff for Bartlett West?
So do we have any places where you have a bike path going right behind ankle parking like that? I'm just not convinced it's particularly safe.
I'm not sure where else we have
Because if,
What
say, a
streets
car's
are
behind
bike
another
lanes?
car, when he pulls out, he can't see
next
the
to
bike.
angle parking.
The only other comparable thing would be residential driveways. The bike lanes go across, so it's.
Not even that, because you could have cars stacked up parking. That's, in fact, it's likely.
So,
But when that first one pulls out, he can't see the bike lane. And the bike really can't see him till he's pulling out. And then he deflects straight left into traffic.
In Princeton.
Princeton Avenue comes to mind.
Parallel? I mean, angle?
Oh, angle parking?
Yeah.
No.
What's the street in front of Sunset, or the elementary school? Yeah, Sunset Hills? Or trying to get the reverse angle parking and then on it?
I don't know if
It's not a bike lane, I think it's just a bike route.
I think it's bike route.
I'm not sure. I think our only other option would be to probably end the bike lane before that.
And we're merging them with traffic, and there's the same issue of, are you looking in that direction?
You'd lose parking spots, and that's not gonna be desirable to the businesses, and I think we have to be sensitive to that area. There isn't a lot of parking, and that is their parking for their businesses. When the
And there are always
notification,
parks there. There's always cars there.
yeah, and when the notification went out, it specifically said we were gonna we would have to basically start over with our notification, and I have a feeling it would be a battle to go forward with that, and we're trying to be sensitive to the businesses in that area. So we did send out, I didn't mention, we send out notifications to everyone, basically from 11th to 14th, anyone who fronted Mass, the businesses along with the residences. We sent out notification of this project, letting them know what the proposal was, and I don't know if anyone's here from that, but I did not hear I never got any phone calls or emails about it, so.
Did you all discuss speed limits at all along this area? What are they, by the way? Are they 35?
I think it's 30.
It's 30?
I saw 30 in Street View. I don't know if it's the full stretch.
I don't even remember. Do you know?
Sounds right.
It's 30 at least for a stretch.
30 for a stretch.
That was
Is it 30 the whole
southbound,
way?
so I would guess it's not faster once you get to the,
It's probably
North of 11.
faster south of 14th. I know in practice, people drive faster than.
well, and hopefully the 10-foot lanes will help with that. People, the traffic calming, people feel a little less comfortable going 40 miles an hour down the road.
Yeah, it looks like it's 30 all through South Park.
So perhaps we may have more questions after we hear public comment. Kind of eager to hear public comment, though. So,
Thank you.
public comment on this item?
Good evening, my name is Carrie Maynard Moody, and I live in the Barker neighborhood at the corner of 17th and Barker. I want to thank you all for volunteering your time to be on this commission. It's important work, and I know it takes study, and it results in a more livable community. So there's a lot to like about this project, both from the city's standpoint and from my neighborhood's standpoint. I think Aaron and maybe Steve and I'm pretty sure Bonnie and Michael and David were at the Dan Burden workshop 4 years ago. Yeah, 4 years ago in July, in which we first heard about the right sizing of Massachusetts Street. And I would encourage you all to stay away from the word diet. It just seems to gets the hackles up somehow. And there will be some hackles, mostly from motorists, not from pedestrians or cyclists. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the economic benefit of having a more walkable, livable neighborhood, and the long-term project taking right-sizing of Massachusetts much further south than 14th, but hopefully down to the Gateway, which is there at 23rd Street. That is the gateway to our downtown. I'd like to talk about the tree canopy. It's there, and that's one of the most valuable parts about having a bikeway and a traffic way that is slower and cooler and healthier for everybody. It's not true that only motorists spend money in our community. Actually, the cyclists and the pedestrians, the walkers, they really are into promoting and to shopping with the local merchants. So not to worry a lot about parking and the loss of parking. I think it's just a matter of educating the businesses that as a cyclist and a pedestrian, I much prefer to shop locally and support them than some of the motorists. And by the way, those motorists actually have to slow down. So when you slow down, you can see the storefronts and you can get excited about what they offer. And maybe you have to go around the block to find parking, but once you slow down, not only is it safer, but it's more fun to just case the joint. So here's to the future of right-sizing Massachusetts Street, and thank you to staff for being as creative as you are and will be as you work with the engineers to make a project that will make the gateway to our city something that we can be proud of. And it's pretty exciting to think that we'll be the first bike box in Kansas. I want to be at the head of the pack.
Bonnie Effman. I live in the Barker neighborhood, and I just want to say that I'm pleased to see this beginning to improvements and right-sizing Massachusetts. I find that very exciting. So I'm glad to know this is in progress. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Michael Allman, speaking for Sustainability Action Network. Thanks to the Public Works staff. This is a fabulous project with a little tweaking. Of course, I always want some tweaking. Retain the bicycle box and the green bicycle lane there. Having those those angled parkers to have a visual cue is much better than just leaving it up to random. And if you're going to do a protected bicycle lane in the 1100 block, I would say remove parking, because you should have enough space for the automobiles to buffer the bicycle lane, particularly from bicycles being doored. You need enough room so when people open those doors. I just wanted to point out that this is one small piece of what's been discussed, as Carrie mentioned earlier, for many years, a protected bicycle lane corridor from downtown to Haskell University, all the way to Haskell, all the way to 23rd. This is a good start, but I wanted to point out that when your commission was formed as a result of the task force, the other part of that major change at that point was that there was dedicated funding for pedestrian bicycle projects, dedicated for standalone major projects, so that we wouldn't end up with little piecemeal segments. Like 9th Street started with a 3-block segment. This is starting with a 3-block segment. It's very confusing, the lanes that go nowhere. So the funding was dedicated to do major standalone projects. This project actually is in the capital improvement plan right now from last year. As you can see, protected bicycle lanes on Massachusetts Street, $343,500 to all the way to 23rd Street. I would strongly recommend that you urge the City Commission tomorrow night, when they're starting to look at the CIP, to fund, this was not funded last year, but request that they fund the whole project this year. That's my first point. My second point is, we reached a watershed moment last week when Mayor Boley said, "Let me express my interest in separating bicycle from motor vehicles and pedestrians. I don't want pedestrians to be worried they'll be run down by bicycles any more than bicyclists worried to be run down by motor vehicles. If we never do this separation because we only do a half mile at a time, we're never going to get separation. We need to have this separation. This is a great project. The delineators will make it work. The city already has Elgin street sweepers that do full lane width. There are available narrower ones that do 8 foot, 6 foot. They're available. The city has 2 street sweepers in this year's capital improvement project. There's no reason they can't add one for bicycle lanes. It's about time that they add a street sweeper for bicycle lanes that will work within those lane delineators. So Mayor Boley has pretty much reached a watershed here, that all bicycle facilities need to be separated, protected, and I would say lane delineators really make this work, whereas the buffer is iffy. So thanks to you, thanks to the staff. This is heading in the right direction. Just let's move it to a point where it actually makes a big difference. Thank you.
Aaron, can I ask a question? Michael, can you just put a little more context on the mayor's comment? Was that?
Oh, that
Other
was
than
in the
at a city
context
commission
of 19th Street extended eastward. They were talking about either what we wanted them to repave 19th Street at its 22-foot width, and they were thinking of, Public Works was thinking of reconstructing it at 47 feet. The City Commission at 47 feet with bicycle lanes on the street. The City Commission directed staff to reconstruct it without the bicycle lanes on the street, but a separated bicycle path. And that's when Mayor Boley said, We should not have bicycle lanes on the street. It's too dangerous. They're not, he didn't say that, but bicyclists and pedestrians are worried about conflicts. I'll put that back up there if you want. There you go.
We have further questions for staff or Bartlett and West?
There's one more thing I wanted to point out, I forgot. We did put a little bit of separation between, to address the dooring concern. So the parking, we have the parking kind of lines at 9 foot, and then we have a foot before you hit the bike lane line. And then, I can't remember what it was, like a 5.5 foot bike lane. We tried to make, so the center of the bike lane was outside of that dooring, at the 4 foot mark. So by having that extra little bit of buffer between the parking and the start of the bike lane, we were trying to address some of that concern of that dooring, and also keep the buffer between the travel lane and the bike lane. So we did a lot of tweaking with those dimensions and what we thought was really appropriate in that area.
Well, you know what would really make this work well? If we could just go a little further south and cover that parking in front of Headmasters and, you know, what is there, about 30 feet or, no, there's more than that, but it's on the west side of Mass, south of 14th. There's that angle parking that doesn't go that far. It's, again, businesses where there's yoga classes and it's used a lot. And it's also sloped up. So it's, you know, it's not going to be an easy thing to deal with. But if you could just get bikes by that and clear that, and then, you know, save the rest for when you've got the money, when we've got the money to do the rest of it. You know, if the green striping could just be extended through there. I don't know if that works with the lanes.
With the dimensions and the parking in front of the school, that would be challenging. If you could shift everything over and get rid of the parking in front of the school, but I don't think that's a possibility. I mean, talking to Ron, that's where they do their bus drop-off. So the dimensions of what everything is there and that need for that parking, and then the right turn lane, and then the travel lane, and then the left turn lane, and then the southbound. I don't think you could fit it all in without getting rid of something there.
Well, could you even get a 3-foot lane along there?
A 3 foot.
A 3-foot bike lane?
You can't do a 3 foot bike lane.
Oh, okay. They have to be
5 foot.
5, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the minimum.
Okay.
So that's kind of our challenge as you get through that intersection is it gets very tight with the current use there.
Yeah, I can see it's tight. just
Yeah,
from
and I
looking
mean,
at
I
the
don't
aerial.
think that that's a problem you can't overcome with time and money
Right.
at some point and some
Right.
planning with the school. Obviously, this project is, you know,
Cut that out.
really, we're trying to squeeze as much as we can out of this little bit of funding that we got from, you know, for the safety money. And so we're trying to do as much as we can, but leave it flexible in the future so it can be added onto.
Yeah,
And it's not perfect, and it doesn't mean that one day you can't put delineators down there if the city does decide to buy, you know, street sweepers, that buffer will be there and be able to be added onto. And this intersection, I think, can be dealt with. But I think with the funding and our schedule with KDOT on this one, it gets to be tough to deal with the parking in front of the businesses and the parking with the school.
well, if I were on a bike going south right there, I would get off the bike and walk it through the pedestrian lane in front of the businesses. Then I'd clear the parking and I might get back on Mass. You know, I mean, that would be my comfort level just looking at this, so. Gee, if there was anything we could do.
I know, and I
along
mean,
there.
I think we should seriously consider the next section of Mass when we're looking next year at some projects, especially if we get this 21st Street Bike Boulevard. However, it is going to take a little more money, because we know there's some more challenges as you go south. You know, 19th Street's a pretty large intersection, and there's some things we have to deal with, but, and we have to get the bikes from 21st Street across Mass, obviously there, but, you know, I think it's important to try to connect those at some point, because that would give us a connection all the way from basically Iowa to Burroughs Creek Trail, if we could do that piece. I don't know, Dave, do you have any ideas of how we could, what we could do through that intersection outside of 14th that he's talking about?
No, just reconfigure the lanes and, yeah, I think at this point, we're kind of stretching the budget too. We're right at our budget, and we've already expanded the project limits. It was originally just from 12th to 14th, and we've gone to 11th. So I think as we look forward into the future to expand going south, we would look at doing a bigger project to remove additional parking and reconfigure the lanes. I know 15th Street's kind of 15th and Vermont's a bike route that comes to 15th and Mass too, so we were talking about that earlier. If there's other low-cost things we can do with signs or pavement marking or sharrows to help that transition from 15th Street at Vermont, where the bike route ends at Mass Street, or transitions to Mass Street, to tie that in better to 14th.
Well, it looks like you could, and I know this spends money, but you could change the radius on the curb on the southwest side of 14th and Mass. And I don't know if you could decrease the length of that parallel parking enough to squeeze in a 5-foot lane. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know you got to spend money to do it, and you start with one thing, and then on the other side, you got to do something to transition back. So
Yeah, if we get into expanding the curbs and then curb and gutter on the sidewalk, it just becomes a lot larger project expense-wise, but all good ideas. We like those ideas.
So I want to second that concern about the parking, but I also think that's something that if we get this done and see how it works when Mass Street is continued, in the future, perhaps will be more clarity on how to address that issue. The question I had was, what are some examples of delineators besides the posts?
Sometimes you see like a curb, basically, kind of
Right,
like the parking
okay. Seen that in
stops, basically.
Madison.
Yeah, I've seen that before. I mean, there's all kinds. You can do a little island in the middle with.
Do they ever do
bring that up.
just, I feel like I've seen this somewhere too, but just sort of the little raised
There's dots.
dots?
Yeah, I don't know if they use those in those cases. Somebody had brought up the concern of a bicycle hitting that and potentially having an issue if they got off, and then also the snow plows, that is still a concern. So I think it's something that we've got to, before we start doing something like that, we have to make sure the city has the infrastructure to maintain it. And I don't think we currently do,
Okay.
is kind of our concern.
The one thing I brought up, and we talked about this, but it has its other hazards too, is without a physical raising, is using like the bumps that they use on when you're hitting the side of a road.
Right.
If you had anything like rumble strips
Yeah, rumble
or something.
strips, yeah.
But
Is that ever used, rumble strips in the,
I don't know.
I mean, it
It's
seems
nothing
like a
I've
great
seen
idea.
in like
until a bike tire
NACTO or
gets
any
stuck
of
in it going the
those
other
that,
way, right?
little rumble strips?
yeah, I've never hit one on a bike. I don't think I want to.
yeah, I mean, you have to be really careful around the bicycle facilities, what you're doing,
Okay.
I was
also,
trying to think
so.
of things that you could have something separating but still have a snow plow.
Yeah, and there's houses there and they're loud.
Well, not if it's only bicycles hitting them.
But there is places there where obviously there's
Yeah.
crossing it and
Right.
stuff too. So
Yes.
it's, yeah, it's tough to find that balance. And, you know, I don't know that this is the perfect solution. I think it's a good intermediate step towards where we want to go eventually, so.
I agree. I think this is promising, and I think this starts what a lot of people have been sort of thinking about for quite some time. Yes. All right. Further questions? Is there a motion for?
Are we looking for a motion, or?
Yeah, so the motion for this one would be to recommend approval of the removal of the northbound travel lane and the elimination of parking. I think is recommend approval of a reduction of one northbound travel lane and removal of parking on the east side of Mass from North Park Drive to 14th Street, because this will actually have to go to City Commission at some point as an ordinance to remove that parking and do that lane reduction, so.
Well, I'll make that motion. She worded it very well.
I read it off of it, to be honest.
I was looking for that, but I couldn't find it.
Just the agenda.
Oh, it's right there.
Yep.
I second. If that's a motion.
Any other discussion?
Oh, did she?
Oh.
Thought I got all
So then, I mean, would the vote be for this particular layout, or simply for the reduction of lanes?
What's that?
Would the vote be basically for this particular concept, or would it just be to reduce lanes?
Well, the only thing that technically needs the city commission approval is the ordinance and the lane reduction. I mean, this is our, we do have a schedule with KDOT to bid this in June, so we would take, you know, we would go forward with the plans from here, if city commission approves it.
Well, if we need to add anything to the motion to do that, I don't know that we do, but we can.
I mean, I would say if you want to, if there's any discussion about wanting to eliminate parking, that's going to have a whole other public comment section, and we wouldn't be able to proceed with the project if that was going to be the recommendation. Because we would have to do notifications and do a public hearing for that.
Well, we could just add to the end of the motion, including the lane stripings and bicycle markings as per the Bartlett and West.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was
Oh, no,
concern,
he's
that,
right.
I
Yeah,
think,
my concern is honestly, I wouldn't be able to vote for it.
Okay.
That just throws, that first accident's going to be a really bad.
Oh, right there at 14th? Okay.
Well, I think
Okay.
that,
On this side it's raised, this side is flat. My wife's teaching at Central, so just going through there over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I very much agree on the concept of doing this, having this, getting a facility there. It's just that particular item. It's, professionally, I can't say yes. Because when you put the green striping down, that does nothing for people backing out. They're not gonna take any more care. And in fact, when you're funneling more traffic through here, so they're gonna pay less attention. The real conflict is that cyclists just can't see somebody backing out.
well, I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be that hard to see someone backing out. I think my biggest concern is that you're going to have somebody backing out that's not seeing the cyclist, and the cyclist feeling confident because
Because they're in a bike lane.
they're in a bike lane and it's clearly
And we're telling
labeled as
them,
such.
This is your lane.
I know you can't plaster the whole world with signage, but is there a way to put signage in front of those parking spaces to ask people to watch for bikes?
Watch for
I mean, you
bicyclists.
can. I can't say that it's going to have any impact. I mean, the more signage you
Right.
put, the less people pay attention to
That's- I
signage.
know this
Is
is
the other issue, right? That the more things there is to read, the less they read it. So we could definitely put signs there, but I don't want to guarantee to
Yeah.
anyone that that would impact
Right.
anyone.
Or partner with the businesses there to,
The signage wouldn't do anything. The only thing you can really do is change it to parallel parking, which will be screening. Maybe wider stalls so that somebody is not right behind somebody. You have just a little more sight distance, barely, a little more warning. That's kind of it.
Yeah, I think just wider stalls, they're going to lose a parking. I mean, there's no other way to do it other than they're going to lose at least a parking stall. And,
Mhm.
you know, if we want to go down that route, we probably need to have that discussion with the businesses and have a public meeting regarding that. you know, we've went down this road before and it hasn't ended well for us. So we're trying to find the balance here. Like I said,
So-
that area is very tight in parking, and I know that we all know that pedestrians and bicycles will buy things there at those businesses, but it still is very hard to convince a business that you don't need parking.
Yeah.
So I have a question. It seems like to me, just the times I've parked there, that parking may change, that there are definitely spots there that it's hard for me to pull out of, looking behind, and spots that it's easier. Is there a change in slope at that location? So on the north side,
Look it up in Street View.
I'm on Street View, but I can't.
Can't tell.
Mm-mm.
What is it? Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna help us at all if you're already looking at that, but.
Yeah, I can't tell, but I feel like part of this, I just don't remember which part is raised. Maybe perhaps it's actually the area closer to footprints.
In front of old headmasters there, that's quite a bit.
Are they actually striped?
No, we were gonna try to refresh the striking.
Because that guy looks like he's completely pulled in, and then there's others at an angle.
Actually, what's the code on the angle of parking? Does it have to be a particular angle? Or do you have some wiggle room to do more of an angle or less of an angle? I
Well,
mean, clearly, have to have it a certain.
I guess I'm confused. Where's the obstruction?
There we go.
How could you not see?
Well, when it's two cars there, it's fine. I'm
So
pretty sure
this is
a
what
car
I'm
behind that red
saying, at
car.
least part of this, when you pull out, you're kind of almost looking down, so it feels pretty comfortable, but yeah, in front of footprints. Sorry, I was actually not looking at Street View. So it's only those first 3 spots or 4 spots that it's easy to see around.
Oh, you're higher up.
Yeah, you're higher up on those first 3 spots, I think, than you are in the next ones. So I always feel like when I pull out of there, it's that first spot after footprints that's difficult to see.
I think that car's parked
He's-
at 90 degrees.
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
the way.
It should be at 60 degrees or something.
Yeah,
Okay.
There's no striping there.
Yeah, I think we were talking about refreshing, kind of striping. I don't know.
That's how those cars are parked.
So what is a parallel parking spot? What's the angle?
I know we have a detail.
Well, we don't have code requirements on-street angled parking. There's a lot of angled parking on-street angled parking, 90 degree, 60 degree that exists. When we've done it a few instances in mixed-use areas, like the HERE project, and we've done some school projects where we've added some angled parking, and it was 60 degree parking, and the depth was, I think, 21 and a half feet, which I don't think that this would meet that depth requirement, which gives enough room for a standard vehicle to be able to back up far enough to see before they pull into the lane.
Right.
So these are pretty shallow spaces. Of course, they've existed for a long time that way, and so to make any changes would be difficult to do that, because if you wanted to make it deeper, you got to go one way or the other, and you got the sidewalk there on the west side. Yeah, it really just depends, you know, if you got a large vehicle next to you, like a van or a truck, it's hard to see. It's gonna be hard to see as you're backing out, so, we're hoping that the green pavement marking does help be that sign that when you're pulling in, you know, that there's that bike lane and you're looking for the bicyclist, but it's, you know, it's probably not a whole lot different than backing out when you got vehicles traveling along the street too, which are going at a higher speed and,
Right.
so it's, yeah, it's a tough area. You know, I think that remarking the pavement marking would be a good idea so that we don't have 90-degree parking, people parking different angles, but,
Well, personally, I understand Mark's concern totally. I think I would prefer a situation like that over a situation where I'm close to parallel parking and doors swing open. I actually think that's like a tornado, you know. I
There's
mean,
no
that's,
signal.
you don't see that door, and I've known people that have had some serious accidents with that. I don't know about in Lawrence, but personally, I'd be more comfortable with what's going on in front of there along 14th than maybe even the area on the west side of Mass where we're going to keep the parallel parking and bikes are going to be near it. So I personally think this is about as good as we're going to do if we're going to get a lane through there, a protected, a buffered bike lane.
I think, because I drive past this intersection all the time, and I think drivers now, just because of the amount of traffic, are pretty cautious when they back out, because they can't see, and traffic's going by, and it's an intersection, and they know people are coming around that corner. It's not a great intersection at all. I was wondering, looking at this, if there's any plans to repair that part of the pavement there where that parking is, because there's a pretty steep, like if you're, I ride through this a lot, and there's kind of a drop off there, and there's nowhere to go without crashing on that street.
Yeah, we don't have any plans to do anything south of 14th, other than
But
putting
just
some sharrows in.
Pothole repair there, that's kind of a giant pothole.
I mean, we could potentially with our maintenance project.
Are you saying right here?
Yes.
So what's happening with the bike box is it's actually moving the bikes into the vehicle lane, so you'd be riding your bike through here.
But not there, there won't be, if there's no widening of that, there's no bike lane being put in there.
Right, so if
Using
there,
the
if
line
there
up
was a
before.
bike lane, you'd be
You
riding
line up
along that.
You line up on the north side. And then
You'd be in the center of the travel lane, basically. It'd be a shared lane at that point, because there's no bike lane.
In a shared lane, when you're riding with the automobile, you're
Yeah.
still expected to move to the right.
Right.
I'm just saying,
So
when you're riding with an automobile and you're trying to get as far over as you
Mhm.
can,
Yeah, I mean,
that's
we
dangerous.
could bring it up with our maintenance this summer. I know this project wasn't specifically going south of 14th with any pavement reconstruction, but doesn't mean that it can't be dealt with our typical maintenance program. So we'll bring it up to them.
So is it the business owner's responsibility to repair that parking area?
I think it's city, isn't it?
That's a good question. It's likely the city, because it's in the city right of way, so unless there was some sort of agreement, license agreement with the owner to maintain the parking, which exists in some new areas, but some of these old areas like that's been around, I would venture to guess it's the city's responsibility to maintain.
So I'll try to move this forward as best I can, and I would ask, is the city commission going to see the Bartlett and West presentation that we saw tonight?
They get the entire packet when
Okay.
it goes to them.
Okay. Will they be commenting on the same aspects of those drawings that we are?
I'm not certain what they'll comment on. They
Okay.
will get the same information.
Well,
maybe just a point, is it going to be on the consent agenda?
I
or the regular
don't know that
agenda?
we have,
We don't set the agenda. I would, if there's not a lot of comment on this project and it gets unanimous recommendation, I would anticipate that it would be a consent agenda type item.
Is that what you were?
well, yeah, I think, I'd like to give staff what they need tonight, to move this forward. We've had a discussion about the bike lanes in this particular area, and if we see the same thing in 3 months at the next drawings, which I think we're going to see, we're going to have the discussion.
no,
We'll have the same discussion again, so.
this is pretty much going to final plans from here. This
Oh, it
is,
is?
it's a very
Oh,
simple
sorry.
project. This is
Okay.
really basically
They wanted to do this now.
Okay.
yeah, this is basically just redoing the surface and striping. That's
Okay.
the extent of this project. It's set to bid in June. We're pretty much gonna, from this point, get final plans to KDOT and get this project bid. This is, like I said, a small $100 and some $1,000 project, so it's not one that the design process is very drawn out.
You're doing the stripings though, aren't you? Am I misunderstanding? You're doing the bike lanes and?
Yeah,
bike-
but it's just the surface and then
Yeah.
the striping. But
Yeah,
there isn't many iterations of plans because
Okay,
it's a
I
pretty
understand.
simple, straightforward project. So
Okay.
it would basically go to, we've already got KDOT's comments, which were things, a lot of which we'd already addressed before this presentation. And so I think they're pretty comfortable with where it's at right now. So it's really just getting Transportation Commission and City Commission approval on the concept and moving forward with the project, so we can get this constructed this summer.
So I feel pretty comfortable with this, even with the angled parking. I think it'd be great if those lines were redrawn and, you know, that angle was enough that it's easier to see behind you. But if you think about riding a bike down Mass Street, this intersection's always felt similar to me. It's not a high-speed intersection. It's fairly narrow in two directions. And so I've always felt fairly comfortable on Mass Street with cars backing. So I don't think I see this as extremely different.
So bicycles are already going down the
Yeah,
stretch
yeah,
anyway,
mhm.
and now we're going to designate a green bike lane. When I think about the HERE project, that angled parking on Indiana and Mississippi, there are tons of bicycles there that don't have a bike lane. So I mean, if we didn't put the bike lane in, there would still be the possible danger of people backing out into a bicycle, right? Or yeah.
Yep.
It's a little different, and if you don't have a dedicated bike lane, you may be more out in the center. So again, you're farther away.
Right, and a dedicated bike lane might also bring bike traffic, because people,
But more bike traffic also makes people more aware of bike traffic, so
that's
that,
true.
Well, and, I mean, part of the green pavement, it's not just for the cars to be aware. I mean, we were in Atlanta at that Walkability Action Institute, and we did a bike ride down into downtown Atlanta, where they have kind of a separated with just a curb in, you know, rush hour traffic in Atlanta, and we were down there, and they put green at where all the cars were coming out of the parking garages. And it was a nice reminder for the bike to go, hey, make eye contact with that person, or kind of be aware that there's cars coming out, you know, as much as you could. So I think that green pavement is also there for the bicyclists to say, hey, by the way, cars are crossing in this area, and you should probably be more aware. And that's how we took it when we were riding, it was that kind of drew attention to both sides, you know, the driver and the bicyclist, so. Yeah, I mean, I understand your concern, but I'm just not certain what the answer is in this particular situation with the limited funding on this project.
so can we just let our original motion stand the way it is?
okay? Vote on that. All in favor of the motion? Aye? Aye. Any opposed?
Sorry. No.
Okay. Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. How many of us are there? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 to 1?
Oh, yeah, it's 7. Sorry, missing one.
Yes. All right,
Thank you.
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, number 4, discuss joint work session with City Commission.
Just gonna shut this off and go to the agenda again.
That's me. Commissioners, we thought it would be a good idea just to kind of debrief from the joint work session that we had, I guess was it last month, with the city commissioners when Chairperson Payton went over the goals for the Transportation Commission this year, and we discussed some of the issues, and we put a couple here on the action item to talk about. One of them was how this body interacts with the Public Transit Advisory Committee. And so we wanted to talk about that and how the interaction occurs or the updates. And then the other was how we are going to handle some of the things that we've talked about, like signage requests and traffic calming requests, and some of the things that could be more administrative, and changing some of the ordinances on how we go through the process to sign, do some signage requests. So I think in regards to the ordinance changes and processing, the different types of items that we get requests for that you guys would review. Amanda's going to work on a memo here in the next month or two for either the June or July meeting to kind of outline the different types of requests and what staff feels could be handled administratively, and we get some feedback from you to kind of develop some procedures on handling those in the future. And then regarding the PTAC updates, we discussed this a little about how we would handle that, and I think it would be a good idea to have potentially have a report item underneath commission items for PTAC update, that the PTAC representative on this board could give everyone, all the commissioners, an update of what they're discussing at those meetings. So that's a couple of our thoughts on those items, but would welcome any feedback
I think the
from you
simplest
guys.
on the PTAC would be when we have our meetings, and they're not quite every month. We schedule the time every month, but it's about 7 meetings a year. Wouldn't we have something, because not every meeting has an actual item. But I would say discuss it with the chairperson beforehand, and then if there's some actionable items or something of interest, then I could bring that up here at the meeting.
Sure.
If I can do something like that, yeah, maybe it's blocked out every meeting, is there an update?
Yeah.
I would discuss beforehand whether there's anything of interest.
The other question I might have is if it would be valuable to include something from PTAC in our agenda packet. I mean, it may be to not create much more work for city staff, just to link to their.
How long have you been on PTAC?
12 years.
I thought you'd been on there for a while. So are there certain pieces of work that you think makes sense for us to be aware of?
Yeah, I think the big concern we speak about is, of course, assuming that PTAC gets taken away, all that's subsumed in the Transportation Commission, which would be bad because it's a completely different field. You've got coordination with KU, you've got coordination with COPCO and everybody else, FDA. So that's something that should be left on its own. But as part of, when it's playing into the bigger picture, like the transit station location, transit application, how is that working with pedestrian? Now, most of that really is kind of the planning level stuff where it's already there, coordination with planning. Well, I think you guys, it would be helping you to be aware of, oh, yeah, okay, we're got something, we've got the consultant coming back with recommending this for transport, for routes, this for route changes, this for coordination. That's why I would like to just vet it to the end first.
So the transit hub, I can see that. That seems kind of one-off, though.
Yeah.
Are there pieces of work that are routine that
So much
would
anymore.
be helpful for us to be aware of?
In the early days of it, PTAC, the commission got into everything, selecting routes and doing administrative work. But now, really, we're just, when Bob, every year they review the routes, when there are route changes, he brings it to us. For approval. He gives us updates on the transit center locations and things like that. Or, ADA policy. Those are kind of the action items we need. So there's not a lot, month to month. I think more just the big items.
So if we just had a portion of the agenda where you could speak to that each month and say no update, or
Yeah,
here, I mean, would that be, we could just have it kind of under commission items as a PTAC update that Mark could speak to if there's something that month?
Like this month would be, no meeting this month.
Yeah. I mean, would that be an acceptable means of reporting that?
I think that sounds acceptable, yeah.
I guess I'm kind of curious where, like, there wasn't, I couldn't really tell from the discussion by the commission what the aspiration would be. And I'm still trying to figure out, like, what's the knowledge that we, if we had it, would make us more effective? So what is that? And I don't know enough, so it's honestly, it's like,
Well, it could be like.
I guess I should go to PTAC and learn more
Well,
what's going on there.
Maybe it's kind of like a lot of the commission right now, we're still trying to figure out what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's
So
probably,
A lot of what, if we're talking about coordinating pedestrian plan, the transit plans, that's up at the NPO, that's the planning, when that occurs.
yeah.
But then again, we're kind of, where are we at getting into operations and improving planning ourselves right now?
But I think that's one of the things that we should at least be knowledgeable
Yeah.
about, or that you feel like maybe in Lawrence doesn't always connect very well. And I just think that's a, ongoing, as you learn, things change. But I don't know how or what can be done to make that better. I mean, outside of, like you said, the planning process and looking more at why and how that's done. So I don't know if it's just, that's one thing that could be discussed at a study session on how and why those decisions are made.
Not even,
Also.
I think to bring information to the commission for a few months.
So-
See, it'd be kind of, I think, maybe help people know, oh, hey, we're looking at route, what are you changing routes?
Right.
Okay,
And why? I mean, do
yeah,
they give
okay.
a rationale usually to why they change them?
That's just an operational thing that you're doing every year. You're seeing where you've got people boarding, where you've got people wanting to go.
That'd be great.
See, that, I'm not as concerned that that would be the relevance of it. To me, the fact that the users are primarily pedestrian users seems more relevant. And their access to the, for them, transportation is two pieces. It's how they're getting to the bus, and then how they're, their use of the bus, to me, seems maybe less concerning to us. But where they kind of get off the bus or get on the bus seems more relevant. And there was a fixed route transit study done a few years ago that identified significant improvements potentially for the pedestrian and bicycling environment that provides access to buses.
Right.
And that didn't seem to get, I don't know what was done with it. And that seems like it'd be more, like when we're thinking about access by foot or bike to parks or schools, bus stops seem to be one of those other, like, oh yes, of course. So that piece, I guess I'm not sure, are we attending to it? I think it's good that we have, as staff are presenting information, they'll say, it's on a bus route, it's got a bike route, it's got this. So that helps us to think about all users. But those users that rely on buses generally are the ones that don't have cars or don't have ready access to cars. So I think there's a shared interest in the user of the bus route or the bus system that feels appropriate. And I don't know then, once we start going there, how you don't end up going further. So that's where I'm trying to get clear, like what's the line where it divides between PTAC and us?
Well, part of that in PTAC work here for, it's not one of the things,
That's a good point.
Yeah, and then we also have a multimodal team within the staff that's getting that transit input into all of our projects. So I think you're getting that then from both the commission sides and the advisory board and from the staff side, that coordination's happening too.
So when you think about that conversation, what direction did you take from the city commission? Just to have a report? Is that really the extent of what you got from that?
I think that just to know, what I got from it, watching, was just to be aware of what Detroit was doing. I think there was a little bit of confusion at first of why they weren't the same, and I think that was talked about when the commission was set up, and there was a very good reasons of why they were left as separate entities. And I think there was probably just a little bit of misunderstanding on that, but,
It was brought up even in the task force work, when we had our study session. The initial draft of the report, and it was, Mayor said at the time, she brought up the need to consider transit, and I think, we took that as, well, our scope wasn't really transit, it was bike ped issues. And so it seems like she keeps bringing this back up, and I haven't figured out yet what is that supposed to mean to us? So.
I know at the staff level, we're considering it. So there's reasons why, like the ADA projects, why we chose the route we did. It's a bus route, there's bus stops, and it's a safe routes to schools. So we're taking that into consideration at the staff level. And I try to bring that up when we talk about it. And like this project on Mass Street, we obviously got Bob Nugent's input because there's a bus stop right in front of the Parks and Rec building there. The coordination's happening. Whether city commission, I guess, sees that, maybe the question, but I think us bringing that up when we're presenting the projects to you is part of that. And then if we can add this PTAC update, and then, if they have something big going on, like this transit facility, I could see, Bob coming at some point and presenting it to this group as it starts moving.
Well, I think first they were just getting the awareness for this.
I actually think that what I read in that commission meeting was, I think at least one, if not more, were surprised that we'd had a representative on this commission. And once that was made clear, I saw some people go, oh, okay, So I think what Mark is describing in terms of an awareness would make the commission happy to begin with, and I think it can evolve, with us,
Well, I think,
however it wants to go.
yeah, I think I had forgotten that we had a PTAC person on.
I'd have to.
And I think that had just slid
Sorry,
away, but I think, what was that?
I said, sorry, Mark.
Yeah, sorry. Well, we hadn't heard about it, so it wasn't so much that, I didn't think about particular people's roles, but I also think it's because pedestrians in Lawrence don't tend to just be pedestrians. They tend to often be transit users. Also, I just think that without knowing more about that, we may not get the whole picture. And so maybe just starting with the education component, just the report and knowing how that works and what's going on might help us with some other, start there and move on as we see it. Yeah.
Good.
Okay. All right.
Was there anything else on that item?
Do we want to talk just a little bit about the other part of that, regarding the ordinances and signage requests and how some of that stuff,
Well, we wanted to come back with, we want to vet something through our legal department and through the city manager's office and have that internal staff discussion,
Okay.
and then bring back for discussion, I think, is the approach we talked about. Does that sound? So I think we don't want to get into the big discussion now because we haven't had the discussion within the city staff. So
Okay.
that is something that we will talk about in June or July. And you guys will have input on and all of that, but we want to have kind of a recommendation, I think, before we start that discussion.
sounds good.
So. And then the traffic calming thing, I just wanted to give an update. We're kind of waiting to see how this budget process goes, because we've made some recommendations with the budget process to realign those funds to be a little more flexible so that they don't just have to be spent on speed humps or traffic circles. So they could be spent on, you know, education, enforcement, engineering, all of those things. It's just the way they're funded right now doesn't give us a lot of flexibility for that. So I think we would like to have that flexibility as we work in this new policy of what we want that to look like. Without the flexibility in how we spend the money, it kind of confines us to what we're doing now, which I don't think is having the impact we want it to have. So that's why that one is a little bit, you know, I think it's not that nothing's happened with it, it's that things are happening behind the scenes, that I've submitted that memo, and we're kind of waiting through these budget discussions to see what comes of that. And I've been working with the police department on, you know, what we could do with that if this budget shift gets approved, so.
Well, I'll just say that sounds really promising.
I hope so.
I mean, just a lot more open to what can be done to address the issue, not just the, you know, engineering solution.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the memo kind of says. Right now, we're only dealing with the 1E, the engineering, and that's all the funds allow us to do with it. So I think we can have a lot broader impact on not just the traffic calming, but the overall safety of pedestrians, with the safety of some of our intersections that have the higher crash rates and things, if we had a little more flexibility with that. Because I don't think this is just a issue of speeding on local streets. I think that there's a much larger traffic safety concern that money could be used to address that would probably have a bigger impact on the city as a whole versus one street at a time. So.
Any other discussion on? Good. All right. Staff items.
Nothing? Nope.
That must
Commission items, the update from the Complete Streets Subcommittee.
I will take a shot at that. I think we gathered some steam here in the last month with our committee and got to what kind of looks like something might be evolving towards a policy. We use the Smart Growth of America criteria for grading streets. There's 10 criteria. I couldn't give you them all off the top of my head, but we started with kind of an internal committee of brainstorming along those 10 points. And we were just not trying to make any decisions. We were just trying to have a conversation. And I think that was pretty effective for a while. Between Catherine and Michelle and I, we kind of divided up the 10 and tried to develop some kind of brainstorming approach to each one of these smart growth criteria. And then we took the next step alongside literally their grading system on one side of the column, 3 points for this, 2 points for this, 1 point for this, trying to develop what we would call the actual language in the policy. So we tried to go from the brainstorming conceptual part of it to more of a definitive policy statement for each one of the 10 items. And then it was pretty interesting. We took all of the, you know, all of our guides out and just compressed it into, you know, a Word document. And it read pretty well, I think. I think the three of us got to the point where, gee, you know, we can inch this thing along further by ourselves, but we really needed the staff to take a look at it. So we kind of threw the baton to Dave and Amanda and said, you know, there's things like references to guidelines and standards and, you know, manuals and all of that that we think may be appropriate to be part of this policy, but we didn't have certainly the background, not only in that, but in writing a policy to begin with. So right now it's kind of in their court to take a look at it. We also, I think, is a critical thing that will be part of the policy is a checklist. It's kind of like, here's the soup to nuts, what you can do in a complete street, and we want to be able to check off that we did look at protected bike lanes, and we did look and, you know, why why or why not it went forward in the development of a project. And I think as people come in from the public and say, well, why didn't you consider this, when actually, most of the time, if not all of the time, it was considered by staff, but it didn't get documented in that way. So I think with a policy and a checklist that we can use, to evaluate conceptual designs and even designs that are further along like we saw tonight would be a good tool for us. So I'm pretty pleased where we are now. I think it's got some work.
I think I would add that with the three of us, we came from 3 different areas. I think Steve was the technical, more, hands-on, how we build it kind of thing, which helped him answer some, from the steps of the 1 through 10, he was able to take the ones that applied to that. And then Catherine and I were able to take the ones that applied to the more, how do you consider the ADA and how do you consider, some of the folks that are in wheelchairs and that kind of thing coming from our standpoint. So I think we worked well in that aspect, just because of our different knowledge bases.
And we did try to, our goal was to be able to look at this policy and have people say, oh yeah, this was for Lawrence, Kansas. It was developed for our community. It would have been pretty easy because there's a bunch of them out there, like take Oakland, California, or Omaha or someplace and just edit it. But, we may go back to looking at some of those policies that are very well regarded, but we want to end up with something that's appropriate for Lawrence. And if you tried to get all the 3s and all the high scores from Smart Growth of America, you probably couldn't afford to build a whole lot, at the end of the day. But the fact that you consider it, I think, is important.
Yeah, I think we looked at that, probably bringing a draft in July is what we were looking at to the group. So Dave and I'll do some looking at that and get back with the subcommittee and have something that we can all discuss in July. So.
We do have a meeting scheduled this week. Do we have some updates then, or do we need to give you a little more time?
Have another chance to.
Yeah, we probably need another
Okay.
week or two.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't be able to meet on Thursday this week.
Okay,
so-
we'll just go ahead and cancel that one and go 2 weeks
it-
later.
2 weeks from that, I think we should be
Yeah.
able to have some input back.
Great.
Any other commission items? Calendar. So we have a bike ride on May 16th.
Yeah, I'd like to get kind of a head count for that. We'd like to start at 3, just so that we can make sure we're done in time and everything. Stephen Mason with Parks and Rec, based on how many people we have, will plan a route for us that tries to take us on some of the different facilities that we have. We can probably get bike share bikes or some other bikes if somebody doesn't have it, so don't let that deter you. If you would like to come and you don't have a bike, we can work that out. You just need to let me know. So I don't know if you guys want to let me know now, or if you want to email me and let me know if you'll be there, but we would just like to get a head count so that Stephen can plan accordingly. So is everybody prepared to answer?
I'm going to do it.
Who will be there? Let me write these names down. Hold on. Charlie, did you have your hand up?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Not
Hey,
I'll
you-
need to email you.
Okay.
Is there a bike ride with commissioners that I just saw on Tuesday?
Yeah, they're doing one on Tuesday, so
The
I
day
think it's an
before?
all, everybody welcome. So there's also that, you're welcome to go to. But we're gonna do one also just for our group. So you guys are definitely all welcome to come. We'll probably invite the MPO and a few other city staff to come along with us, and it should be fun. Hopefully the weather's nice.
Yeah. Since it's now gone from winter to summer.
I know. As long as it's not like lightning and raining, we'll be doing it, so prepare accordingly. So, what we'll plan, I'll send out an update to you guys, letting you know for sure location, but I assume we're probably gonna meet, like, over here by the, garage is where I'd assume we would start. And does everybody have a bike? Does anybody need anything? Okay. So, but yeah, I'll send an update. I'll have Stephen work up a map, and we'll, get an update to you guys for that. So. Okay. But 3 o'clock.
Are you expecting anybody to join us for this one? Like the city commission ride in the past had a lot of people from the public.
Yeah, I
This
mean,
one-
it's a meeting, so people are welcome to come. But we are, we do want to be careful. There's only so much we can do with a large group of people, so I think we're trying to do it more for your guys' experience more than anything, to see the different facilities. Because I think it's nice when we present things, it's nice to see what those look like out being built. So it's not that others aren't welcome, but we aren't doing like the Facebook, page, like invite.
Are you doing that then with the city commission one?
What's that?
Are you doing that with the city commission one?
I believe there was an event on the Facebook page I saw for the city commission one. So you guys are definitely welcome to go to that one. I think our intent of this one was more for the education of the transportation commissioners to see the different facilities. And we did this as a multimodal team, and I felt like it was really helpful for me to go and ride them and see the different type of facilities. And then hopefully, I don't know about next year, but maybe soon after, we'll have a bike box to go through in one and things like that, and some bike boulevards to go ride on. So it'll just be neat to get out and see the facilities as a group, I think. So, wanted to have a little more discussion too about the county calendars coming up. We've been having some challenges with getting enough people to have a quorum. The study sessions we look at as an opportunity for us to bring issues that we would like to have discussions about and get some input on from the group. And in the interest of everyone's time, it's really, we don't feel like without a quorum or a majority that, we're really getting enough input at those times. So that's why, we canceled the last meeting, is because we feel if we don't get the input then, we're going to bring it to a meeting and have the same discussion. So want to make sure that we're using everyone's times efficiently. And I know some people had some concerns that they had scheduled the time and then it gets canceled, and now they've lost that time because they had set aside, and they weren't aware that it was going to be canceled until the day or two before. So I thought maybe we could look at these dates, and anybody could let us know if there's some we need to cancel now. Let's just look at that and see if, I know things come up, but we have some now that we know that we're going to have 4 people missing at, it'd be good. Or if we can cancel it, even if you don't know right this second, but you want to email me later your calendar, and we can start to see if some of these are an issue. We tried to schedule around the holidays as much as possible, like the regular meeting, July 9th. It was originally the week of 4th of July. We pushed that out a week, knowing that some people probably be gone that week. But is there any dates in particular that people know they're not able to be at that we should take a look at?
I'm going to be out of town July 18.
I will be gone June 20th and July 18th or 9th, but I am not sure which of those meetings I will miss at this point.
Anybody else have anything they know of currently?
Anything in October is not going to happen for me because that's Medicare open enrollment.
And it's just difficult for me during the school year, Wednesdays at 3, it's just, I have to reflect that when we first were picking the time. It's just not one of the only times that I really couldn't commit to.
So you think like June, July will be easier?
It's possible. Of course, that's also, I'll be doing some traveling too. I don't know my dates yet.
Okay. I think the biggest thing would be if you know you're going to miss a meeting, let me know as far in advance as you can so we can cancel it if we need to. That way other people have that time they can schedule work, other things for work or personal that they need to do.
What would be a good time to get a head count? A week before?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard I've been trying to do it a day or two before so that it's fresh in everybody's mind, but it's hard for me to remember too, to reach out to everybody.
What if we mentioned it at our meetings at the beginning of the month, so,
Well, I do, I say the next meeting is, I
but to
mean,
try to get a head count, try to get commitment. and remind
yeah.
people.
I mean, I would just be curious, I've missed the last 2 study sessions, but they've been complete flukes. Some things come up. So I would just be curious as to whether that is a good time or not, and if we could have a show of hands. as to
The
whether
issue
that's
we have
still-
is, I mean, we did a survey to
Yep.
to pick this time, right?
Right.
So
And this-
it was very, very hard to
Yeah.
find a time that enough people could come, and we can get this room.
Yep.
We have that constraint of, we have to have this room.
Mhm.
So switching it mid-year is gonna be tough, because now other things have filled
Right.
in the room. So, you know, we tried to be very thoughtful in picking this time, and did a whole survey for that. I think if we're gonna change it, it's gonna have to be, you know, going into next year, just
Mhm.
because of, you know, like I said, it's hard to, even when I did it in December, it was hard to find the same third Wednesday of the month, because there's things already scheduled,
I guess,
so.
do we have issues that we need a meeting for?
What's that?
As opposed to just educational? As I understand, when we first started study sessions, they're basically educational.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things we're bringing, we want input on.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's what I'm getting at. How much of it is educational, how much of it is something we have a back and forth meeting on?
Well, like the mixed traffic facilities one, that's one we want some input on. We want some discussion, because it was something brought up by a resident, and we think it's worthy of discussion. So that's one that we didn't want to have without a quorum, and, you know, because we were going to have public coming and potentially have some input. So yeah, there's certain ones that'll probably be more educational, and there's certain ones where we're going to be seeking some input, not votes, not actions, but some input, so we can go forward and, you know, make the best decisions to bring to you at the meetings for action.
I think is there a lot of this you could just give us the information?
What's that?
Is there a lot of this where you could just give us the information?
Well, I would like it to be a discussion versus just information that we can't, the only time we can all discuss is if we have, is an open meeting. So we can't discuss by email. You know, you can email me your personal thoughts, but you don't hear everybody else's input, which I think is valuable. So that's the purpose of them, is to be able to have
I would make
that.
this comment too, Amanda. I don't remember which one it was, but Jessica gave a presentation last month or the month before, and we didn't have a quorum, but we went ahead and had the meeting. And I really felt that the meeting was far less effective because all the people weren't there, just in terms of the expertise and the level, you know, we all bring something to the table. And because of that, that meeting was kind of ineffective. I don't think it really gave Jessica what she was really looking for in a discussion. And we could have had we had more people, you know. So, you know, part of me is like, gee, I wish these could be more informal, you know, and not have to call them a work session even. But I do know that in that particular case, it really made a difference.
But I think there's a lot of content, like I said, that meeting, Jessica's bringing, okay, here is your MPO and plan.
Mhm.
A lot of that was just to tell people, hey, there's an MPO, and here is a plan.
Mhm.
A lot of that was just the content of trying to educate, as opposed to getting feedback on making changes in the process. And in fact, I think getting the education out there first, then with a little bit of use of time, because then we can come back in with the questions once we know. Like say this mixed traffic facilities, you know, when you hear it cold the first time, maybe you've got some more questions after you've actually processed that a little bit.
Well, and that's what the regular meeting where we would bring that back with a recommendation would be for. These study sessions, some of them are to prepare you so you have that time, so we don't just come to a regular meeting with a recommendation of something you've never seen before. That's, I mean, so I think it's educational and it's a preparation for future agenda items. I think it will, one, help us keep our meetings, you know, focused and effective, our regular meetings, and give you that time to process it. I would hate to say that we're going to take everything that we want to discuss in a study session and now push it to regular meetings.
I think the difficulty for me a lot of times is I'm not representing a business or anything like that. And working in Topeka, I mean, I have to rearrange my schedule to do the subcommittee. And I'm kind of doing that as a work-related thing because it's a complete streets policy, so I can make it work as far as getting off work to come. But when work sessions are during my work time as a supervisor, it's difficult for me to, I have to use personal time to do that because it's not really I'm not really representing my business. And that's why I haven't been to a lot of them, because of that conflict.
Yeah, I mean, I think, everybody needs to decide whether they want to, I guess, put the time in for the commission, and if it doesn't work, I understand, but I don't think we can get rid of study sessions. I mean, I guess we can. I don't think that really is going to serve everyone as well, because you're not going to get that side in that transportation, that education side, where it's a little more informal and we can bring in the other city staff and have those discussions. So if you as a commission want to eliminate those and just go to regular meetings, we can do that. But it becomes, with the Open Meeting Act, it's very hard for us to have any other meaningful discussions, because we can't just push stuff out by email and expect anything meaningful to come out of that.
I think the study sessions are important, and I really like them. So I don't know whether there is a better time, but it sounds like for now, we can't really look at any other times anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I don't know that the last time was a problem. This time's a problem. I mean, we did an open,
Yep.
We had everybody vote on a time, and this was the best time for everyone. So I don't know how that would change now when we just asked a couple months ago.
I think we need.
I mean,
to
and you're not going to find one time that works for everyone, and we know that.
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
I think we need to get to the end of the year and reevaluate it, not only when we have them, but what they're all about.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm struggling with is knowing that there has to be a quorum for these, because I think they're important, and I would love to attend them all, but again, I have work issues as well. But if they're educational, it seems like, maybe we could have a minimum number of people that's less than a quorum for them to happen, and then let the rest of us kind of catch up by watching are they videotaped?
Only if we have a quorum, because it's a public meeting. So this notification goes out to residents. There's a public comment portion of it on the items that are, so that's how we're currently. I don't know that we have an option to, I mean, we either have a closed meeting and we have less than 5, or we have an open meeting that we advertise that it's, this is the agenda.
I would have to necessarily close.
Well, again, I don't think that it's valuable to have less than half of the commission give input on items. I don't think that's a good use of the 4 people who show up's time or the staff's time if we're not getting a more input. So, I don't know if you have an opinion.
No. Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, if we're going to regularly have borderline quorums, and then we just need to know up front so we can cancel the meeting. If there are, if we need to adjust the schedule and look ahead, if there are certain dates or times of year where you think you might not make it, let us know, and then we can adjust it on the schedule. And if we have an important item where we feel that everyone, or the majority needs to be there, that's what we'll plan ahead for. Some of these items could be discussed at the regular meetings, but again, it's just how much time we have in the regular meetings, and that's why we started this study session last year, because we had so many things on a regular agenda. So we just want to be able to balance the schedule.
Don't stay till 11:45.
Yeah, I think that's hard on everyone.
But
Yeah, like we'd like to bring like the traffic calming discussion and things. We'd like to bring that to a study session before we bring it to a regular
Yeah.
meeting. It just seems like a better use of everyone's time to have that upfront discussion, get some input, go back, work on it, and then bring it back, you know, at a meeting for action. Those type of things. So I guess for now, we'll keep them. I just ask, please, and maybe, you know, if, when we bring it up, hey, this is the next study session, when we do bring that up, each month, if you can let us know. You know, I know Charlie's done that, and I, you know, appreciate it. And I know things come up sometimes, but hopefully if we know going into it that we've got, you know, one person can't be there, so we have 8. If something happens to 1 or 2 people, we still have a quorum. And that would be helpful, just to have a little more notice, so we can make those adjustments, so.
Just as a footnote, the advisory shoulders, we missed that. The session we missed, I think that was one of the topics.
That's the mixed traffic facilities that's now
Oh,
in
it is?
July.
Okay.
Yeah. There's actually, per that, I don't know if it's a manual, but
Okay.
there's 3 mixed traffic facilities, and that is one of them.
And I would really like to go to that, but
One thing to make it, for those of us that get the AL to do is, could we try to like make the decision a week out? Even though it's gonna be, you know, so nebulous and there's so many people, if something comes up right then. I think people can kind of assess, say, a week out. I don't know if a meeting has come up or something's come up before.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah, and I think,
That way
how do
we-
our
we get
meetings
that feedback
align?
right then.
I mean,
Like-
before you even publish the agenda, I think it'd kind of be nice to know we're gonna have the meeting.
Most of them are weekend ahead.
Yeah, most of them are, look like they're about 10 days out, like from the regular meeting
They
to
are.
the study session. So this would probably be like for May. It's a good time to know, you know. And we just kind of did that, and we had, I think we have 5.
Well, I was looking through September, and they're all the following week,
Yeah, that,
at least through September. so
for the
you could-
most part,
Yeah.
there's, you know, it might be an appropriate time at the regular meeting to try to make that commitment. You know, I'm less worried about ones like the bike thing. That's really educational, but there are certain ones that we do want the input on, and
okay.
Are you imagining the June study session to have a conversation about the complete streets
we were
policy?
talking about the July regular meeting. We discussed that with Commissioner Payton. We met with her last week. She's not going to be at the June study session, and we weren't sure we'd be prepared to bring that yet, so we were going to have that at the July regular meeting.
All right, but a discussion before we have a decision about it.
Yeah, we just, unfortunately, we didn't have another study session before the July meeting to put that into, so that's why we pushed that. I originally had it scheduled for the June study session, but I think
Okay.
there's going to be some people absent at that one, so,
I'm absent in October from the study session,
okay. So that's
if you're tracking
October's,
it all.
yeah. We'll look as we get a little closer at how we need to, but I appreciate that. Yeah, we didn't, I'm not sure, we'll plug something in for June. We were kind of waiting to see how things turned out with this discussion tonight, to see if it was worth still having June, and if so, we'll plug in a topic there.
I mean, if we're talking about this now, and I can say that the mixed traffic facilities, there's a way we can move that to August.
I mean, you can. It's not. Because I know there was a discussion, you know, this was kind of started from a meeting we had, what, October, November, with some residents. But I'll tell you that advisory shoulders aren't a current approved MUTCD one, so I don't know that any action would come out of it. I think that's one thing we wanted to discuss at the meeting, is they're still experimental.
Right.
So I don't know that we have necessarily an action waiting on that one anyway,
Right.
at this time. we can move that.
Okay.
We also kind of are just starting our ADA transition plan with city staff, so that's on there as a future one. We got to kind of see what our schedule looks like. We just started meeting, so I'll plug that in at some point once I get a little better feeling about what our schedule to complete that is. I think we're not looking to complete the ADA transition plan for about a year, but I'll let you know here. Maybe later this year, we'll look at that at one of the study sessions. The downtown master plan, I don't think is moving yet either, so that's why that hasn't been plugged in.
I don't know if there's any other comments or,
I mean, I don't know where this, get anybody else's interest, but with the bike share project at KU, I'm just kind of eager to know, like, when does that discussion get into, like, the community bike share? Is that already kind of in process, or is it something that someone needs to champion it in the community?
You probably have the best input.
Yeah, we're actually meeting, I have a draft MOU between the university and the city, and some city sites that they have suggested that we geofence to be able to park bikes around the city. I think there's going to be a different set of rules for private businesses that might want a geofenced bike rack. You know, if Dillon's wants something, I think the city's going to have some steps that that company has to take to get to be in compliance, I guess. But it's coming. I mean, we're just right around the corner.
So, is there any opportunity for public input on that, or
on locations?
Transportation Commission discussion about that?
I don't know if it's. I don't know if it's appropriate, or if Parks and Rec would bring that to here. I know Jessica Mortinger's been pretty involved in it.
The MPO and Parks and Rec have been working together on that, to look at areas where there's, I think, excess bike parking that they could.
They're very concerned about having just tried to clean up bike parking, especially downtown, and are concerned that we add all these extra bikes into the mix, especially one that doesn't necessarily have to be locked to a rack. So I know they've been proceeding really cautiously, but do you mean public input to actually add?
I guess I'm assuming that at some point, before there is bike share in the community, that the city commission would likely have some role.
That will
So,
go, the MOU will go to the commission, and I think there's some separate agreement between the city and VO Ride.
So
as
just,
well.
I guess I assume that means it has to come to us first, and so I'm asking, like, is that going to be a study session to us, or is it a decision that we have to make, or recommendation we have to make, or what's our role in that process?
Good question. I don't know if we anticipated bringing that to this group. I know our Parks and Rec department has been working on the MOU, and I just last week saw it for the first time, so I'm not sure of the timeline on when they're taking that to the city commission.
And technically, the contract is between KU and VO Ride, and then by MOU, we have an agreement with the city, sort of like sharing or cooperating on transit. So I don't know. I know that the city has to agree to cooperate, or that we would have this memorandum of understanding. But I honestly don't know where that fits into approvals or how that works.
We'll follow up on that, find out.
anything else on that? All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Come on, Mark.
You want to stay here?
We're not done until 11 o'clock.